Hello, everyone, and welcome along to the TSJ101 Sports Podcast. This is our first podcast. This is our first ever try at this sort of thing. So bear with us. It's going to take a bit of time to get used to, but we will get used to it in the end. The first thing we're going to talk about today on this podcast is Raheem Sterling's accident, you would say. Sterling was involved in a little confrontation with Liverpool's player Joe Gomez in the huge title decider between Liverpool and Manchester City at the weekend. Liverpool end up running out of that game 3-1 winners. It was a good game, a couple of controversial decisions. VAR was at the forefront again, as it has been so often this season, with a Trent Alexander handball and a possible offside for Mo Salah. It was hard to judge, but VAR should be getting them things right, and they didn't again. But back to the topic at hand. Towards the end of the game, Joe Gomez and Sterling became involved in a little confrontation. Joe Gomez ended up picking Raheem Sterling up at the midsection, and Sterling didn't like it. Sterling reacted quite angrily and told Joe Gomez that not to mess with him. That was what a lot of lip readers said that Raheem Sterling said. So fast forward to England international training. The England internationals met up this week. They had a Euro qualifier game against Montenegro last night, which they won 7-0. And Raheem Sterling and Joe Gomez again became involved in a confrontation, this time at the England training camp. It was said to have been Raheem Sterling who started it. Gomez was said to be laughing with his teammates when Sterling walked in. Sterling reacted angrily to the laughter and walked up to Joe Gomez and said, "Are you still the big man?" This prompted a lot of laughter from his England teammates who thought he was messing. But Raheem Sterling was not messing, and him and Joe Gomez ended up getting involved in a physical confrontation, which had to be broken up by fellow teammates. Now, Gareth Southgate made it public and ended up dropping Raheem Sterling for the Montenegro game. Here's the reason why I don't think that was the right thing to do. So, these things happen in football. These things happen in football clubs. Confrontations are had, emotions are running high. These are winning players. One of them is Pep Guardiola's players. Raheem Sterling is a Pep Guardiola player who instills the need to win games inside his players. And for such a big game that Manchester City and Liverpool are, there's going to be high emotions. There's going to be people upset if they lose. There's going to be people happy if they win. And it's not always going to stay outside international training. These things spill over into international training. You can't just turn off wanting to win. And I think the fact that this happened behind closed doors should have been kept quiet by Gareth Southgate. There was no need to spill this over into the media and give them something to write about. It only halts both players' careers, because the fact of the matter is, Joe Gomez came on as a sub last night for England and was booed onto the pitch, even though it was the fault of Raheem Sterling. Both players have been affected negatively by the decision to put this into the press, which isn't fair on either player. Raheem Sterling was in the wrong, but he owned up to it, and it should have been left at that. Sterling should have been dropped for the Montenegro game, and he should have been dropped. There shouldn't have been a reason why he put into the media. It should have just been Raheem Sterling left out of the team, and that was it, as punishment. But it was let go into the media. Joe Gomez has now suffered because of it, and Raheem Sterling has suffered because of it. A man who was becoming an ambassador for racism over the past few months is now in the limelight for the wrong reasons. He's finally got a break from the media after years and years of intense criticism from the media over gun tattoos. They tried anything to victimise Raheem Sterling, and now he's back in the limelight for the wrong reasons again, which is unfortunate for him because he's been on such a good run in the media. Big news this week in the international world is the fact that Gareth Bale is set to come back for Wales. Gareth Bale is set to return to action to football tomorrow, Gareth Bale is set to return. Gareth Bale is set to return from injury for Wales tomorrow against Azerbaijan. This will be Bale's first game in a full month. He hasn't played for Madrid in a month. He's been saying he's been injured for a month, but he's back fully training for Wales and is in contention to start for Wales tomorrow. Now, Gareth Bale has scored. This is very similar to what's happening at Manchester United. I always come up with the argument to people who want Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to be sacked. I ask why, and they will tell me that they believe he is not publicly criticising the players. And I always say to them, why does everything need to be public? We live in an age now in the media and journalism where people think everything needs to be made public. Things that happen behind closed doors need to be made public. Back in Alex Ferguson's era, a lot of things happened that were kept behind closed doors. A lot of bad treatment to players that were left behind closed doors, because that's how a football club should be run. And that's how I feel Gareth Southgate should have dealt with this situation. It should have been left behind closed doors. It shouldn't have spilled out into the media and gave them an unnecessary story, because it's now affected both players in a negative fashion. And you could argue it should have only affected Raheem Sterling in a negative fashion. The media should never have got tail of this, and it should have been left behind closed doors. Mistakes are made, and Raheem Sterling has made one, and he will atone for that and has owned up to his mistakes, which is what all you want any man to do. And I feel, just with this whole situation, it should have been left behind closed doors. Now the question is, does Raheem Sterling start the next England game? I believe he should. I think it's one mistake. It shouldn't mean that he gets dropped for both games. I think Raheem Sterling should go straight back into the England squad in the next game, and I hope he does, because he is an important part of that England team, and if they want to succeed anyway close in the next Euros, Raheem Sterling needs to be at the forefront of that squad. Now, to go back to the topic of Manchester United. Is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the right man for Manchester United? We can't say yes or no yet. We really don't know. But in my opinion, from what I've seen from Solskjaer so far in his tenure at Manchester United, since that 5-1 result against Cardiff back in December, I've seen a lot in my eyes. Number one, the Manchester United team is likeable again. Over the past couple of managers, Van Gaal, Mourinho, the team has had no identity. We do not know what way they want to play. We don't know what they do in training. We don't know what they train for in training. But looking at this Manchester United team now, despite the losses to Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, there is a sense of identity in that squad. The Liverpool game was a huge example of that. Liverpool come to Manchester United, unbeaten all season. They're facing a bad Manchester United team. A Manchester United team who has dropped a lot of points recently and needed a result out of this game, or they would have been in free fall. They would have been so close to the relegation zone. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer comes out with a tactical masterclass against Jurgen Klopp. He freezes out the two fullbacks, which is arguably Liverpool's most potent form of attack. Them two fullbacks are a huge part of Liverpool's attack. And if you watch them against Manchester City, the switch of play is on every single time to them two fullbacks. Solskjaer recognised that, and he countered it with a 3-5-2. And he had Marcus Rojo playing left centre-back. It would have been Tuanzebe had he not been injured, but Marcus Rojo came in and had a great game. He also had Ashley Young on that side, and Ashley Young gave Trent a horrible time. Trent did not know where to be, where to go, and that was a huge tactical turning point, I feel, in Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer this season. It happened last season against Tottenham as well. This time, Ole played it differently. Spurs play two high fullbacks, and they did play two high fullbacks last season against Manchester United. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, in that 1-0 win against Tottenham, made his wingers stay high. He made the wingers stay high so they could catch them two fullbacks in the counter-attack, and we got the goal exactly from that. Paul Pogba, a long ball over the top to Marcus Rashford, 1-0. But what I've been most impressed with in terms of Solskjaer was his dealings in the transfer window, I feel. Over the past couple of years, a lot of Manchester United managers, Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, they've been guilty of just throwing money at the wrong players. Falcao, Di Maria, Pogba, you could argue, Mkhitaryan, players that only wanted to come to Manchester United for the money. They didn't want to come to Manchester United for the culture. They did not want to come to Manchester United because we're the biggest club in the world. They only wanted to come to Manchester United because they had a good paycheck They had a good wage, they had a good signing on fee, and they could look good. It's Manchester United. You're going to look good playing for Manchester United. But that doesn't guarantee results, and it did not guarantee results for Manchester United. Di Maria was a flop. Falcao was a flop. Mkhitaryan was a flop. All players on high wages. Alexis Sanchez is arguably one of the biggest flops of all time. In Premier League history, you will struggle to find a bigger flop than Alexis Sanchez. Gareth Bale is a man who's probably been criminally underrated during the entirety of his Real Madrid career. Bale has scored 104 times and got 67 assists in 238 appearances for the Galacticos. But at the start of this season, he had a huge falling out with Zinedine Zidane. Zidane said he was no longer part of Real Madrid's plans. He said he didn't want to have him in the starting 11. And then towards the start of the season, Bale started to play a few games. I think Madrid realised they needed Bale. With Ronaldo gone, there was no real player to step up and be the man there. Benzema is an aging player, so Bale was probably one of the best world-class players they had left at the club. But Bale has been out for Real Madrid with injury for the last month. Now that's all well and good, and a lot of people believed he was truly injured, but Bale has trained for the past 2 days fully with Wales. Full training, and is in contention to start for Wales tomorrow against Azerbaijan. Now this has sparked huge uproar for Real Madrid and their fans. But I believe it's more of an indication of Bale just wants to get out there. Bale's not happy at Madrid. He's been unfairly treated. There's no reason for Gareth Bale to stay at Real Madrid anymore. He has to move on if he wants to further his career. He's won a couple of Champions Leagues. He's had a great career at Real Madrid. He's done what he's needed to do. He's won trophies. Now it's time to go back to the Premier League. Now it's time to enjoy the last few years of your playing career. You don't want to look back in your playing career and say, yeah, I won a few things, but I never enjoyed myself. Bale could come back to the Premier League. He could play for Man United. He could play for any team in the top 7 and enjoy the remaining years of his football career. Because it's quite clear right now, with the fact of him leaving stadiums before games are finished, Tony Kroos has publicly slated Gareth Bale for leaving the stadium early. He says he knows it's not within our guidelines. It's something we shouldn't do. Should always stay and support your teammates. And Gareth Bale hasn't been doing that. And it's a clear indication that he, as a player, needs to move on from the club. And the club need to cut their losses. Although I'd say they would have made their money back on Bale, they just need to cut their losses now. Get him out of the club. Get someone in who wants to play for the club. And bring Real Madrid as a club forward. Because they are slanting since Ronaldo left. Which was probably expected. Their all-time top goal scorer. And a man who was probably soon to be the all-time top goal scorer in football history. Bale needs to go, cut his losses, and enjoy the last few years of his playing career. A huge thing Alex Ferguson used to do when he was in charge of Manchester United was stop players going on international duty. Every single international break, you'd pull up a news story, and one of the Manchester United players would suddenly not be going on international break. Why does this happen? Managers are afraid of their players getting injured on international break. They have no control over it. And what can the injury of one of your biggest players do for your title charge? It could kill it. Just what Jurgen Klopp has been doing with Mo Salah the past 2 international breaks. He stopped it well. From our eyes, he stopped Mo Salah going on international break because Salah's picked up little niggles and Klopp does not want to push him further, because if he gets injured on international break with Egypt, it could affect Liverpool hugely. Just like if Van Dijk gets injured for Netherlands, Liverpool's title charge, which looks so good at the minute, could diminish mentally. And I think that's why managers do what they do in terms of pulling players from international break. They see winning the league as more important. It's really up to what the player wants to do. If the player wants to play for his country, you can't stop him. But if the player wants to stay and help the title charge, you can't stop them either.